Stop recording.
Okay, we're good to go. All right. Welcome to the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District's workshop on Rule 8051, open areas. My name is Patrick Houlihan. I'm the supervising air quality specialist for the rural development team. With me is Kyle Matsumura, also a air quality specialist, and also John Klassen, director of air quality science and planning. We want to thank you ahead of time for participating. This meeting will be conducted in person and live or in video teleconference at the district's Bakersfield, Fresno, and Modesto offices, as well as Zoom. Before we begin, I do want to go over some general instructions for the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. At the conclusion of the presentation, public comments will be taken. Staff will recognize any public attendee who has indicated they wish to speak. If you're asking yourself, how do I participate? We will start with in-person participants in district offices and then move to Zoom comments. And finally, we will read any comments received via our webcast email. If you are participating in person, please be prepared to approach the podium and you'll be recognized. If you are comfortable, please give us your first and last name and the company agency that you're representing. For Zoom attendees, only district staff will be visible via Zoom and all attendees will be on mute. Please press the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen so that you may be recognized to speak. Be sure to unmute yourself as our clerk calls your name. If you are participating by Zoom via phone, please press *9 to raise your hand so that you may be recognized to speak. Staff will call the last 4 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to speak. Please press *6 to mute yourself. And then also through the webinar, comments on the Q&A feature of Zoom will be read aloud by staff at the end of the workshop. Anytime during this workshop, written comments may be sent to webcast@valleyair.org as seen on the screen. The mailbox will be monitored during the workshop. Comments received will be read aloud by staff during the comment period. With that being said, we do have some brief instructions from our interpretation services. Please excuse us, give us one moment.
Ok, hola, mucho gusto. Yo soy Cristina López de parte del equipo de lingüística. Estamos teniendo la interpretación en español mediante Zoom en vivo, así que si tienen una computadora, pueden usar los controles de la reunión y seleccionar el globo, ¿verdad? Del mundo abajo, que es el icono de interpretación, y seleccione español y luego silencia el audio original, que es Mute Original Audio. Y si están conectados por teléfono, por tableta, pueden seleccionar los 3 puntos para ver más opciones. Seleccionar interpretación y seguir las mismas instrucciones de arriba. Para hacer una pregunta o un comentario, entonces por favor seleccionen el icono de reacciones para levantar su mano.
All right, thank you very much. Let me give a second for interpreter to walk back to the station. And a good reminder to me to speak slowly, and if you do make a comment, also speak very slowly so that we can get effective translation. Thank you. Okay, well, let's begin then. Meeting federal air quality standards is very challenging due to the unique topography and meteorology of the valley. As you can see in this slide, that's fog during a winter event. But as you can imagine, pollution takes the same path and sticks into the valley, just much like the fog you see there in the graphic. We do have mountains to the east, west, and south that bottle in air pollution. We frequently have inversion layers in the atmosphere that trap air pollution near the ground during the winter months. We are a major goods movement corridor, so we have a lot of train and semi-truck traffic going through the valley. We do have high population growth. We have pollution entering from other areas of the state. And as we've noticed in the last few years, we do have wildfires. And finally, even with all the recent rainfall, we do still have drought implications here in the valley. So as a result of all that, we require substantially greater emissions reductions to meet clean air targets than other regions may have. There's been tremendous success in reducing NOx emissions since 1980. That has been accomplished through a variety of actions, regulatory actions, CARB, adopting mobile source emission controls, strong incentive programs that have been a combined $5 billion in public and private investment. However, this success also highlights the challenges ahead as the valley has many standards still to attain, and the ability to reduce emissions even further becomes more and more difficult. If you look to that graphic, the large blue and just above it, the minor part in yellow is what the district has regulatory authority over. And so even those drastic reductions, we have to reduce it even further from that small sliver of the pie. Okay. If I could draw your attention to the maps on the left hand of the screen, this is for PM 2.5, averaged over a 24-hour time period, and you can see the reductions from 2003 through 2020. Obviously, the goal is to get to green or dark blue, so we are on the path to that. And then likewise for the maps on the right side of the screen, those are for PM 2.5 averaged over the annual or a year's period of time. And this is from our monitoring data from our monitoring network. And so again, it shows the drastic improvements in both 24-hour average and annual average for PM 2.5. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kyle Metzmer to talk about the rule that we're here for.
Thanks, Patrick. The district previously adopted the 2018 PM 2.5 plan, which contained contingency measures for multiple federal PM 2.5 standards. EPA has recently disapproved the contingency measures submitted in this plan. To address these contingency disapprovals, the district recently adopted the Contingency Measure State Implementation Plan Revision and amendments to District Rule 4901, wood-burning fireplaces and wood-burning heaters, in May of this year to fulfill Clean Air Act contingency measure requirements. These measures were developed through a robust public process that allows interested stakeholders to offer comments and suggestions to the district. The contingency measure SIP revision included a demonstration that the district and CARB are both implementing the most stringent measures feasible, analysis of the limited opportunities for additional measures that are compatible with contingency measure requirements, amendments to the contingency provision of Rule 4901, and a commitment to further evaluate the opportunities for a contingency measure within Rule 8051, open areas. So first, we will go over what is an open area and what are the current requirements of Rule 8051. Open areas are defined as vacant portions of residential or commercial lots and contiguous parcels that are immediately adjacent to and owned and/or operated by the same individual or entity. Notably, on-field agricultural operations are subject to District Rule 4550, Conservation Management Practices. Currently, Rule 8051 applies to urban open areas measuring 0.5 acres or more and rural open areas measuring 3 acres or more and have at least 1,000 square feet of disturbed surface area. These parcels are required to ensure soil stability and limit visible dust emissions to no more than 20% opacity. The proposed contingency measure would lower the rural acreage threshold from 3 acres to 1 acre. Thus, rural parcels in this size range are subject to the contingency measure. The proposed measure is only triggered if the valley has failed to either meet a reasonable further progress requirement, meet a quantitative milestone in attainment plans, submit a quantitative milestone report, or attain a national ambient air quality standard by the applicable attainment date. The table on this slide presents the district's analysis of parcels and acreage that could become subject to the proposed contingency measure. The district used parcel data provided by Assessor's Office of each district county to make these estimates. As you can see in the middle column, we estimate that 10,640 parcels could become or would qualify as a rural open area that measure between 1 to 3 acres. These parcels contain approximately 18,819 acres of land. Notably, a parcel must contain at least 1,000 square feet of disturbed area to become subject to this rule. The proposed contingency measure of Rule 8051 would achieve 0.008 tons per day of PM 2.5 emission reductions if triggered. The district chose to pursue an open areas contingency measure because EPA approved a less stringent measure for rural open areas in Imperial County in August of 2019. The district also identified potential shortfalls in Imperial County's contingency measure, including the lack of an attainment trigger and the quantification of the emissions benefit from the measure. The district has chosen to form a similar contingency measure as Imperial County, but has addressed potential shortfalls. Rule 8051 allows parcel owners to implement a variety of control options to limit visible dust emissions to less than 20% opacity. The control options allowed in Rule 8051 include the use of water, chemical dust suppressants, organic dust suppressants, crushed gravel or rock, and paving. Notably, open areas are only required to implement dust mitigation measures on disturbed surfaces. The district conducted extensive outreach to numerous service contractors to gather cost estimates associated with each dust control measure. Our analysis found that the costs of each measure ultimately vary and depend on the parcel specifications as well as the practice selected. Open areas also have the potential to grow vegetation that could become a potential fire hazard. Local and state agencies responsible for preventing wildfires often have strict requirements for open areas, including limiting vegetation growth and creating fire breaks with the goal of preventing fires from starting and spreading. The district has evaluated considerations for common fire prevention activities, such as mowing and disking. These two practices are often used to reduce vegetation to meet fire prevention requirements on large parcels of land, such as open areas. The district is allowing these activities on parcels subject to the contingency measure to ensure fire prevention is not impeded while limiting dust emissions. The proposed rule will allow mowing and/or cutting, which leaves at least 3 inches of stubble immediately after such mowing or cutting has occurred, and disking, using no more than 2 passes while the operator minimizes the speed of equipment to limit dust emissions. Here's kind of our timeline for this rule project. We previously had our first public workshop for potential amendments to Rule 8051 earlier in April of this year. We are currently having our second public workshop to discuss these potential amendments. We plan to post the proposed rule as part of our 30-day publication with an upcoming governing board hearing to potentially adopt these amendments to Rule 8051. As always, the district encourages public participation throughout this rulemaking process. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to myself using the contact information provided on this slide. Thank you. And do we have any public comments here in the Central region?
Thank you, Kyle. I don't see any public commenters here in the Central region. Let's go to the Modesto office. Any members of the public wish to comment in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Okay. Bakersfield or Bakersfield office, any members of the public in attendance in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Okay. We'll now switch to Zoom. If I could ask the clerk, is there anybody on Zoom?
Our first public commenter online is Jacqueline Alonso.
Hi, the question I have for you, oh, by the way, Jacqueline Alonso with Rio Bravo Fresno. On slide 5, you showed 6 images of annual data for the 2.5 p.m. What time of year is that photo being taken? Is that over the whole year or is that a specific time of year? If it's a specific time of year, which time of year is that? And is that a consistent time frame for each of the 6 images?
We have John Klassen, Director of Air Quality Science, coming to the mic for that one.
Hi, Jacqueline. This is John. Good question. So on the left-hand side of the slide we're showing here, these are 3 images showing averages for a 24-hour period, meaning kind of the maximum daily average for the year. So this often occurs during the winter time. So you can think of the slides on the left-hand side, those 3 images, as a wintertime peak average for PM 2.5. On the right-hand side, those are 3 years for an annual average, so average throughout the entire year, January through December. So that's a representation of the entire year versus on the left is like a peak value during the winter season.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other commenters on Zoom? Okay, we'll now check the Q&A for the webinar. And we're seeing none on the Q&A for the webinar. We're also checking the webcast, the email webcast@valleyair.org. And I see no emails there. So with that, we'll leave the contact information up for Kyle. And we will go ahead and conclude the workshop. Thank you very much.